Hey YouTubers, it's Steve Robertson again, coming from Rescape, my channel that seeks to aid and benefit people by helping them be more aware or informed on their or about their fundamental perception of reality and what that is and how that affects them, and then how to improve one's life or relationships or well-being by safely at their leisure altering their fundamental perception of reality, and how when aligning that fundamental perception with truth that causes people to become what human beings are supposed to be, and how large groups of people with correct fundamental perceptions of reality, or approximating correct fundamental perception of reality, as large groups of people come together like that, it has the potential to change the world. Today I'm going to do a video on what I call the natural state. Now, the quickest way to introduce the concept of the natural state is if you have a guy or a girl that's about to go out on a date, and then the advice you give them is, oh, just be yourself. The idea of, being yourself would put the best foot forward, or the date will go the date will go as best as it can if you're just, you try not to be someone that you're not. The problem with this is that many people going out on dates will understand that if they were to be themselves on the date, it would not go well, and then they're stuck with the option of either shouldn't having gone out on the date to begin with, or being on the date trying to impress the person of the opposite sex by being something they're not. Now, the importance of the natural state is this. The natural state, well, let's do this twice. It is the natural state of human beings such that if they remain in their natural state, that state will improve as far as like becoming a more outgoing person or charismatic person, or being able, really just any part of the human being, like becoming smarter, or more logical, or well balanced, or any number of ways, like any psychological factor that can be a positive trait, even more compassionate or generous or whatever, or the tendency towards the positive virtues, and not just like with morality, but like common sense, knowing who to associate with, like who do you make your friends out to be, being perceptive as far as being able to tell if someone's being honest or not. Like, I mean, there's a whole list. You could just go through them. Just pick something that would make someone have a more quality of being a person. Then that would be one of the things I'm talking about. The thing is, none of these things improve well. They may actually disimprove, if that's a word, make it get worse, unless a person remains in their natural state. So, for example, if you're going on a date and want to impress the opposite sex, and you choose not to be yourself, what you're actually doing is you are, I don't know what the word is, basically you're setting it up so that on future dates, when you're with other girls, potentially maybe a girl that would like you for who you are not as good of a person for that girl as you would have been if you had chosen to bite the bullet and just be the best version of yourself to the girl on the date you're currently going on. Oh, what's the word? It's I want to keep saying it's dishonoring yourself, but it's like you're doing a real disservice to yourself and to your potential future mate by making the decision to basically manipulate the person you're going on a date with and not owning who you are. See, the problem is most people don't exist in their natural state because they don't like who they are. But if people understood, and I'm glad that I finally understood, or was taught, was that if you are honest and act out of your natural state and who you are, even when you don't like yourself, if you still have that level of grace where it's like, well, I'm not who I want to be, but this is me, so I'm just going to love myself. And if you can do that, you will start becoming, by doing that, the kind of person you want to be without actually having effort or trying. The directing factor being you're becoming who you want to be. The fact you have a desire to be a certain way, that's who you'll become if you remain in your natural state to begin with. Because if you have traits about you that you don't like, being in your natural state will then bring those to mind, and you'll start working on those things. But if you try to manipulate people or pretend to be someone that doesn't have those traits because you're trying to avoid those traits, then you're not addressing the issue and they'll remain. So one of the benefits one of the benefits of being in your natural state, whatever that is that you will never be a more powerful human being in any degree of in any way in any state other than your natural state. Because as soon as you come out of your natural state, even a little bit, what you're doing, you're applying energy to be something that you're not, and that's energy being applied there to maintain that. Even a little bit, that energy being used to maintain that is energy not being used in a productive manner for whatever activity or process or space you're occupying or something like that. For example, you have the idea of like you have the idea of the white knight. Like, say someone wants to have high integrity and high moral character, and so they want to be the white knight, and so they take that persona on. But the problem is, if their natural state doesn't have that level of morality, then by holding themselves up to that standard, they're actually creating the situation where they're going to break that morality. And people do this and they don't realize it all the time, because basically what they're saying is my level of my level of morality and the level of integrity I have is not what I want, and that judgment on themselves prevents them from remaining in the natural state. That if they had remained in, of course, they would eventually get that level of integrity because that's what they wanted, and so they'll start working out on the things that don't have integrity on, and that's something that God helps with people. All these self-improvements, by the way, are only because of a connection with God, and if you can communicate with God, it makes them that much easier and quicker, because they'll start pointing out things to you and tell you directly how to where to go about to change those things. So that's just one example with like the white knight, like have high moral integrity, and then it becomes part of your ego, because you're like, I'm a good person, and you walk around and then you start judging people for not being good and things like that, and it just starts going downhill. So, and then that energy expended, the high moral integrity, well, you could have been helping people, and not judging people, and actually maybe doing some good that would demonstrate moral integrity had you not been trying to, have high moral integrity. And this can go out really far. Like, I'm sure everybody knows some people that are really like completely detached. They think not necessarily highly of themselves, but they think they're someone they're completely not. This would include being self-entitled, most types of arrogance or ignorance, or people that like built this persona up around themselves about who they want to be, but it's not true, and anybody that gets to know them knows it's not true. And so there's the self-deception there. If you want to watch my videos from self-deception a couple times ago. But really, in the natural state, what you have is truth, and it's just you have the honesty of who you are, and you're just with yourself, and that you embrace that. And it's hard. I mean, especially when starting out, because there's a lot of things you won't have, haven't faced before, and then that takes a huge level of humility. Again, that would pretty much, I believe, would be impossible to get to that point if it wasn't for God leading you there and giving you the strength to accept yourself. But yeah, so being in your natural state, you'll be the most efficient version of yourself. You'll also be, the more you can stay in that state for the durations that you're in that state, you'll be growing. If you come out of it, you'll stop growing, but if you go back, you'll start growing again. And as far as I know, there's no rewind button. So a lot of people will grow and be in their natural state for a long time, and then they'll get off, something will catch their eye, and then they'll forget what they're doing, and then they stop growing. It could go on for years, and they realize that they've just gone, their error of their ways, and they can start over again. But they start over at the point where they left. So, and as I'm saying all this, most people don't do this at all. So if you're one of the people that actually understand yourself as being broken, and you maintain that, and you can love yourself anyway, well, then people around you, you should know that people around you will notice that over the course of time you're becoming a higher, I want to say a higher quality human being, but that seems kind of judgmental. But again, like being more joyful, being more humble, being more compassionate, being more perceptive and understanding, and high moral character or high integrity, but not the kind that you have to maintain, and not the kind that causes you to judge other people. And no matter how far along you get in this, you're always going to maintain that level of brokenness, because there's always things to work on. If you're growing, that means you're growing away from something, which means there's always something to work on, which means you always have to have that level of humility and brokenness to stay with yourself and to love yourself regardless of where you are. And you'll see this with people that walk this path, the saints or whatever, the shining symbols of glory of what people can be, and they won't see themselves anything other than a normal human being, because they have the correct fundamental perception of reality, is that they're not anything other than a normal human being, because that's their natural state, and they understand that regardless of what other people view them as. So this 10 and a half minutes, I'll leave it there. I think I've said the same thing over and over again in this video, but it gives you an idea. So stay in your natural state. Don't go off to try to impress people or to do things or be things that you want to be. Instead, stay in your natural state and ask God for help, and He will grow you into that kind of person. Just be patient. And yeah, I guess that's it. So if you guys have any questions, post in the comments, and I will see you next week. Thanks, bye.